All right. Good evening, and thank you for coming back to the Yesteryear podcast. Usually, I would have a little song for you to sing or to sing you in for the movie that we're doing, but unfortunately, Legend, which is the movie that we're doing tonight, pretty much only has musical acts by Tangerine Dream. At least the American versus European. We'll get into that. Versions do. So, good evening. How are you doing tonight, Beth?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Feel like I got a little tickle in the throat, but we're going to power through and hopefully not to have too many ahams going on.
Gross.
May turn it into a 1932 German movie. So, all right. So, as I said, we're doing Legend tonight. So, what did you think about this movie overall from the preview and everything like that? Did you watch the preview?
I did watch the trailer.
Trailer.
I gave the trailer as my impression score of it a 6 out of 10 because it did look pretty interesting. Looked kind of original. It like something that I would go see during that time. Something that was new, like unicorns and magical stuff. So it looked cool.
Gotcha. So I don't recall the first time that I saw Legend, but I do know that I loved it from the jump. It came out in Europe in 1985 area, but it wasn't released until April of 86 in America. Now, this is a bit of a time twist for me when I was looking this up. I didn't realize this because you know what else came out in 1986?
What?
Top Gun. Now, to you, that means nothing.
No, it doesn't mean anything. I've never seen that before.
Because you have not seen that. But Top Gun stars Tom Cruise. And it's where he's a Navy fighter pilot and goes to Top Gun, flying F-14s and everything like that. This came out in April, and I think that it said May was the release date of 86 for Top Gun. I did not realize this until I was actually doing research for our podcast. So from my frame of reference in my memory, the Legend actually came out, from my point of view, came out before Risky Business. Came out before, other movies that he was in, and it didn't. It actually came out in 86. Now, Top Gun is really where he took off. That really was his I would say that's where his launching point was. He was in Cocktail and Color of Money and other movies, but Top Gun's really when a lot of people think Tom Cruise, they think Top Gun. So, but anyway, that's a far stretch from Legend. So back to Legend. For me, it had a very Dungeon and Dragon feel to it. With the cast of characters that it had. Yeah. You've got fairies, you've got magical, you've got demons, you've got orcs, you've got elves, you've got crazy little character guys, and you've got princesses. You've got everything that really has that Dungeon and Dragon feel to me. So at that time, one of my uncles actually had either recently married or was going to marry one of my now aunts. She had a much older son, and he actually introduced me to the worlds of Dungeons and Dragon. And I was hooked, man. Right off the jump, he was telling me this story about how you play it and everything like that. And I was like, what? So basically, you've just got somebody who sits back and it's a world, and you got this
really cool story about it.
It's crazy. It's like you're like living a world, and
right.
And you have these dice and everything. Now, didn't play it at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sucks.
As cool as I thought it was, I didn't have. I had older sisters. And all my friends. It was the 80s, so we were outside. If you were doing something, you were outside being smarmy. You weren't inside playing. Your parents were like, "Get the heck out of here," because it was Florida, especially. So.
Right.
It was 98 degrees in the house, and it was 92 degrees outside. So it was actually cooler to be outside than to be inside. But later in life, when I got into my teenage years, I did get into Magic the Gathering, which is kind of a form of that. It was kind of like fledgling Pokemon cards.
Yeah, the cards.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! All of those nowadays, pretty much, in my opinion, based off of Magic the Gathering. So that I like that mysterious world feel that it has, that Legend has. Also, there was a cartoon called Dungeons and Dragons that came on Saturday mornings. It was awesome, man. It was just it was so funny. One of the characters in it was voiced by one of the other characters that like did did the real Ghostbusters and did a whole bunch of other cartoons. This voice, I don't know who he is, but it just like today, like when I hear like Master Shake off Aqua Teen Hunger Force,
Right.
and then I'll hear him on other cartoons. I'm like, oh, you're also on what's the one with the purple kid?
Chowder.
Thank you.
Right.
Yep. I'm like, hey, that's you're from there too. So one other thing that I did really like about this movie is that when it was re-released, it allowed me to share it with my own kids. My two oldest kids grew up, watching this movie. They called it Jack and Lily. They didn't call it Legends.
Right, yeah.
As you probably remember.
Right.
And, I absolutely loved the movie. I grew up with it. It was one that when it would come on HBO, I was like, yeah, we're watching this. We're on it. And then to be able to see that again and have you guys watch it like that was just phenomenal to me.
What was interesting is that before I sat down and I watched the trailer or watched the actual movie, I was trying to recall it in my head from watching it at such a young age, because I was like, oh, I've seen this before. It'll be like how I remember it. But I only remembered like 2 scenes from the overall movie. Everything else was brand new. And I was like, I don't remember this. What's this garbage?
So were you excited about watching it again?
I was excited about watching it again because obviously it was one of my favorite movies growing up, because we watched it a ton.
Right.
Which is a shame that I don't remember much of it like before I watched the movie again, but
from all the trauma.
Yeah. Blocks it out of my memory.
Right. Now it's all been replaced by David Bowie.
David Bowie. He's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
Yeah, watching the trailer, Jack even says, he's like one of the lines, he goes, "I've got something really special to show you," and the next frame is him blindfolding her. And after watching Labyrinth last time, I got Jareth flashbacks, and I was like, oh gosh.
All you see is Hoggle.
Yeah.
Kneeling down.
He puts his finger on it. Like, it's okay.
It's okay.
You're going to become a goblin baby.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's crazy. So the director, Ridley Scott, you're not going to know again. No. I'd love to be able to tell you new stuff. He's the director of Alien, and he did work on Dune some. Those are both huge sci-fi classic movies. Alien, it launched an entire genre. If I say Alien, you know what I'm talking about. The aliens, right? The xenomorphs are what they're called. But he wanted to do a fantasy movie that he was building from the ground up instead of trying to retell an already told story. But however, to me, the content may be original, but I can't say that I haven't seen this story before. Basically you've got girl meets boy, boy kisses girl, girl causes apocalypse. That old gem,
Right.
Really,
right.
Where it's, a guy wants to get with a girl or wants to give a girl something, steals the heart, has to go on some giant quest
to save her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've seen it before. It's been done, but the content of the movie is what was original, and that's what his original story was that he really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, how does it begin? That's what we want to talk about.
Well, it begins with the Green Goblin from Spider-Man walking on the screen.
Yeah, that dude definitely did look like the Green Goblin. One of the saddest things about the movie, and we'll get into it as well a little bit later, is that they had to dub it. They had to dub the voices over. And you can see it in some, it's because of the soundstage, because of how they had with the sound. It was so noisy because of all the effects they had going on, like the stuff blowing around and everything like that. They had to basically dub everything over.
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
And a lot of the voices aren't done. Like the Goblin is done by a lady who was actually playing another character. It's crazy. It's not even the same person.
Oh, weird.
So a lot of people were dubbed over. But yeah, like you said, we're introduced to Darkness, this BFG, man.
Angsty as heck.
Yeah. Who sends his goblin crew out to kill the unicorns in the nearby forest. What he wants to do is what? He wants to cast the world into eternal darkness and basically like a forever winter. We find that the unicorns are basically the guardians of the light, and darkness needs their horns or their alicorns to complete his plan. Ugh. The goblin trio of Blix, Pox, and Blunder, they set off to do just that. And while they're on their way, who are we introduced to?
Lily and Jack.
Right. Lily she kind of represents humanity, and she's going out to see Jack again. Basically, they're hanging out in the forest. He's a forest-dwelling boy.
Kind of reminded me of Tarzan a little bit.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Tarzan and Jane, that kind of thing, because she seemed to have more social skills, like the way she was approaching him, and he was kind of just like there. And
he's a wild child,
right?
Yeah, he's just hanging out in the wilderness, being a wild boy. He decides they're hanging out, kissing, doing all that kind of stuff. He wants more out of the relationship, so he does just as you said. He decides one day he's going to go ahead and blindfold her and take her to see the unicorns.
Actually, I thought that scene was pretty funny because as he goes to do it, she's like, "Whoa, don't you trust me?" And then not even responding, he tries to do it again. And she's like, "Dude."
Right. No. Yeah. So yeah, he takes her to see the unicorns, but that's strictly forbidden. I mean, that's like no dice. You are not supposed to do this. And unfortunately, the goblins are hiding nearby with a blowgun to shoot the unicorns. Basically, their plan is coinciding with Jack's plan. I don't know if Darkness had some great scheme that he knew that was going to happen with Jack, but either way, it happens. So Lily goes, tries to touch the horse, touches the unicorn. Touches the unicorn. Just as she makes contact, blow dart goes, boom, they run off crazy. They just think it's happenstance. Jack is basically besides himself. He's like, what are you doing? Yeah. I completely told you not to do this.
Yeah, he asked her multiple times. He's like, please.
Multiple times. What the heck? You're not supposed to do that. That happens. And he's completely, again, like, why would you do this? And she's all, you can deal with it. It's okay. But hey, if you get my ring, I'll marry you. I'll marry whoever gets this ring.
And then throws it off a cliff.
And then chucks it off a cliff into the water. So he's basically besides himself because this is what he's wanted, is to progress the relationship. So he's like, what was that about the unicorns? Oh, I don't care. Yeah. I'm after this ring.
Ring time.
So, boom, he's going after the ring. Just as he's going after this ring, he's in the water. He's down in it. I don't think that he actually finds the ring at that point in time.
No, not at the time.
Because the storm starts happening, and I think it distracts him from it. They cut off the alicorn from the unicorn. If I say horn instead of alicorn, it's going to be okay. Everybody's going to know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Because alicorn is not even a word I really heard before. But that's what it's called, apparently. The unicorn's horn is an alicorn. So that you know that.
Sounds kind of geeky.
Yeah. So doing this plunges the worlds into the apocalyptic winter. And Lily basically runs off in a fit of panic. And Jack barely breaks through the frozen water. And that brings us to that part.
Lily was like, oh, why did you jump into the water? Oh, now it's all cold? Guess I'm going to leave.
Right. Not stick around.
Just dips out.
Not just dips it. Freaky stuff's going on. I'm going to run off. Why was I here? Out. So we find Lily running to the cottage that she had been at earlier.
Right. It seemed like a friend or something's house.
I think that
related to her.
She's a princess.
Yes, right.
Depending, again, this is the thing about this movie. There's like 4 different versions of this movie. Oh. Yeah. So basically, in this one, I think she's a princess, or depending on what she's either lady or princess or fair maiden, whomever. But she's hanging out with that lady, the girl, before she goes to see Jack. And that's where she runs back to.
Right. And then the goblins come and
it's all frozen. Right. And so they're checking out the alicorn, and they're like, oh, what's the power that this can do? And hey, we're so bad now. We're so cool. And then they just sit there and say, oh, well, thank God for that stupid girl, basically. She let us distract those unicorns long enough for us to be able to shoot and plunge the world into darkness. Lily's upstairs, feeling all kinds of responsible. What's she do? She follows them. She decides, well, I'm going to go ahead and follow them find out how I can fix this problem that I've caused because I feel responsible.
Which in retrospect seems like an okay plan. I mean, you're there, might as well follow them.
I guess,
Either
but
way, you're gonna freeze.
I mean, she run off all scared, and then she's like, "Oh, I feel responsible."
That's
so the
true.
same thing that I'm scared of, I'm going to go run off after. All right.
Yeah.
So they have to go meet with Darkness. I don't really know why they came to this cabin in the first place, but they did. So they have to meet with Darkness. So she follows them, as we said, feeling responsible, and she's watching them kind of screw around with the alicorn until Darkness shows up. Tell them as long as the mare lives, the female unicorn, the world cannot be cast into eternal darkness. So one of the goblins blunder. He decides he's going to attempt to overthrow Darkness, which I didn't even understand why that happened. He just all of a sudden he's going to go, badass, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to do this." Completely subdued and like sucked into the world, dropped off. He's like, "Yeah, you're done. Go do this. I'm done with all this mess." So presumably at this point he's swept off to the castle, and the goblins are going to go do what they're going to do. So, what are your thoughts so far on that?
Well, I mean, it seemed like, story was progressing rather nicely, pretty fast. Like, here's your conflict already, and then, you have Jack separated from Lily. How are they going to get together? A lot of questions. So, a pretty good movie so far, I thought.
Yeah. So we get back to Jack. He's been joined at the forest by the elf Honeythorn Gump.
Yeah.
Gump.
What kind of name?
Well, there's a lot of famous Gumps. There's Forrest Gump, and there's Honeythorn Gump. He's his uncle.
Oh, all excellent characters.
Excellent Gumps, yes.
Yeah, excellent Gumps.
The fairy Una, and the dwarves Brown Tom and Screwball. So he had to locate... he finally comes across the mare who's mourning the lifeless stallion. I didn't know if the stallion was dead or just downed or just put out. I never knew at this point, even as a kid or even watching it again. I was like, is it dead? So I guess it's
embarrassed.
He's like he feels embarrassed without his horn.
Don't look at me.
I'm naked. Jack is basically wrecked by the sight of this and feels completely responsible for his role in the situation, as he should. Having brought Lily in the first place.
Right.
He was completely doing it for all the wrong reasons, and he knew that this was off. He shouldn't have done it. He does cry and apologize to the mayor, who does reply that he has to set off on a quest to retrieve the alicorn and return it to the stallion. So at that point, I'm like, well, I guess it's not dead. Maybe it's just frozen as well.
Well, the one on the ground told him that? I thought it was the lady unicorn.
Yeah, the mayor.
Right.
The mayor is the one that's standing, and then the stallion is the one that's down. So the female is the one that's still
good. Back and
she's like, and of course she does it in her best whale song voice.
Oh, the horrible noises they make. Only once throughout the whole movie did they make actual horse noises. The rest of the time it just sounded like screaming, dying kittens. It was horrible. It's like the noise would appear like, oh god, the unicorns are coming. They're the real darkness of the movie.
Oh jeez.
Horrible.
So Jack does accept and sets off with the crew to retrieve some ancient armor first and some weapons, and they leave the dwarf Brown Tom to guard the unicorns. That's their best option, I guess. I don't understand. I guess somebody had to stay behind, and clearly it couldn't be Jack because he had to go get the...
Well, that guy was pretty impressive. When the goblins eventually do show up and find him, he's like dodging them pretty well with his pan. He's shooting the arrows.
I guess. While Jack and the gang are off doing their thing, the goblins do return to kill the mayor. But now Lily's there, and she interferes. She's like, no dice, you're not doing this. So instead of killing anyone, or they do think that they killed Brown Tom.
Yeah.
Because they shoot him in the bottle on his head. They capture the mayor and Lily and return to the castle. Found that a little bit odd. That seemed like a little bit of
that they didn't just kill him.
That they didn't just kill him.
Yeah.
That's clearly what Darkness said.
Maybe they ran out of darts.
Shooting
at the one guy.
I guess. So, the road so far. What are your thoughts on how the movie starts, character development, introduction of the characters? Do you feel that it sucks you in wanting more?
I mean, at this point, you have a wide variety. Oh my god, of characters. I mean, some are more interesting than others. I mean, when you're first introduced to Gump, he gives Jack a riddle and then freaks out when he answers it.
In one version.
Yeah. Oh.
That's the difference. Yeah, exactly. The version that we have, they do, but that's not in every version. Isn't that weird?
In that version, he gives him the riddle and then freaks out about it and is like, "You're not supposed to answer my riddle. You're supposed to get it wrong," and angry. And I was
right.
Like, okay, well, that's weird. But, and then Lily and her running around with the unicorns and now the goblins and going into the lair. It was kind of weird. Some parts were more interesting, like the parts where Jack's going to go get the armor. That wasn't very interesting, kind of boring.
Felt like it should have been more.
Yeah, I mean, they just go in the cave and he's like, "Oh, over here, Jack."
Oh,
and then the scene ends.
Right. So he's wearing like feathery dress and then he gets armor dress. Yeah. He does a lot of man spreading in this movie.
It shows his ass a lot. Like there's a lot of scenes where he rolls over and it looks like he's almost wearing a thong.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's just full on butt. There it is. And it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, well, there's that.
He's got to make up for his like multitude of teeth he's got in the movie.
He does have a lot of. He's very toothy.
Yeah.
Very toothy man. So, in continuation, Jack and gang do return and find that Brown Tom is not dead. And he basically tells them what happened. They decide that they must quest to the castle in the middle of the swamp to complete their task. And this is where it got bad for me as a kid.
Same. No, I didn't like this part at all.
Here's where we meet Meg Mucklebones. She is the creature that lives in the swamp surrounding the castle. And she is just hideous and grotesque and all-around nightmare fuel for me.
Yeah, I related to this character,
Oh.
All that Jack needed to do was show her reflection, call her she was beautiful, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I won't eat you."
And once again, in this version. Oh. In some versions it's long. And it originally, and I hate to keep going back to it. So when he wrote it, he had, like, the movie would have been over 2 hours long. They had a lot of quests in there. So it's very possible that to get the armor and to do a lot of other things, that they had to do a lot of other quests for him to be able to do so. But because of time restraints, they cut it all out.
Yeah.
So in one version, he's basically like, "Oh, hey," and it's like, "I'm going to get you." And he's like, swipe and cuts off the head.
Oh.
In other versions, he has dialogue with her. Convinces her, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, you're this. Oh, look at the reflection. And then while she is distracted, cuts off the head. The movement after the head is cut off, when the arms are going all crazy and flailing and stuff like that, that scared the bejesus out of me as a child. The bejesus. That is, the whole scene is just horrible and terrifying. I just have no time for Meg.
No, it wasn't good. I didn't like it either. She was definitely very scary.
Not a Meg fan.
No.
Now he was Robert Picardo, I think is the guy's name that played Meg. And people are going to know the name right offhand. Other people will. He had bit parts in other 80s movies, but was on Star Trek Voyager as the doctor, the hologram doctor, for a long time. Great character. Love the guy. He was also in Inner Space. These are all things that you have no clue what I'm talking about. But other people will. And they'll say, "Oh, yeah, that guy, Robert Picardo. I know who you're talking about."
Cool.
So,
Star
very
Trek.
cool. He's Star Trek.
I'm over here blank face. I don't know what you're talking
about. Well, one day you may.
One day I might.
So then they do travel on. They reach the castle. Now, depending on the version you're watching, they either go right into the dungeon or they're intercepted by these horrible beast things called pygmies. Now, did you see the pygmies in the version that you would see?
They go into the dungeon.
They go into the dungeon. There are these things that pop up out of the dirt. They're walking through a tunnel after they get into the castle, and they just pop out of nowhere, like all these things, and attack them. And then while they're fighting them, and then they end up down in the dungeon. But yeah, a lot of people hope one day there will be a version that they merge together that is like this ultimate version that has all the different parts that are perfect with it. And it'll be a little bit longer. But at this point in time, they've found that people are willing to sit through longer movies if it's a good movie. because that's why movies for the most part are like an hour and a half, like 90 minutes,
Right.
80 minutes, 84 minutes, like a runtime. Like, you know, what is the average attention span is what, 30 seconds or something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
right.
So, I mean, to depend on a human sitting somewhere for 3 hours is kind of like, we're not going to be able
And
to do
sitting
it.
still at that point.
And sitting still without pee breaks, without raisinets, you know,
Gross.
and goobers and other things, and people opening, you know, packages loudly during the filming. Beth.
I would not be me. I do it before the movie.
Yeah, right.
I'm not the one who gets up and goes and pees.
That's
Piddles.
me. That is me. I'm piddle pants. But either way, they are launched into the underground prison cell, which looks to be in a kitchen.
Right.
Now, depending again on the version, which I'll keep saying, either they show a man being tortured
They do.
or they don't. So in the version that you saw, they were torturing a man.
It's a little bit in the back, and it's like slashing at him or something.
Yeah.
He keeps like doing the same
Flopping
motion.
up. It's
flopping up like a fish.
Horrible. They run into Blunder, the one who tried to take on Darkness, and he turns out to be a wayward elf.
Yeah,
So
brother.
That's cool. So they're like, oh, brother. So they make friends with him, but then he gets dragged off by an ogre to be cooked in a pie. So not a great fate for him. And then in what seems to be a misplaced scene for me, Una, who is able to change size, offers to help them to escape if she can have a kiss from Jack.
You're right. No, she said she was like, it was supposed to be our little secret or something secret with Jack.
That she can get bigger.
Yeah, and that was not mentioned before.
But it was, but in that version that you watched, it wasn't. Yeah. I think when they were getting the armor, there's a scene in there where she gets bigger and he's like, oh, you can get bigger, and she's like, yeah, but it has to be our secret.
Oh.
So then she's like all mad, but he does almost kiss her when she glamours herself to look like Lily, but he resists, and then she lectures him.
Yeah.
on basically that it was his lust that got him in this problem in the first place. You know, if he didn't want Lily so bad and, you know, do that whole thing with the unicorn, then they wouldn't have been captured and we wouldn't be in this problem. So we go from there. She does help them escape. But the next scene is a bit confusing in nature to me, and it seems rushed. I would have liked to have seen more development, but I guess you get what you get, you know, when there's a timeline at stake. That's basically how it goes. So Darkness is seemingly falling in love with Lily. Now, this is a cool thing as well. Another film that we can reflect on with this is called Prince of Darkness. And it was in the 1980s. And it's basically where these college people go to this building where they're getting, like, if you're close enough, when you dream, you get an image or a video played from the future.
Oh.
And it's of the Prince of Darkness rising. And he's in this building. While they're there, they have use of the mirror as well as being a portal for darkness. So the fact that darkness comes through the mirror like he does completely freaked me out. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. I mean, a really cool effect as well. You know what I'm talking about when he steps through it. So
Now, is that before or after the weird dance she has with the cloak?
that's during the dance.
Yeah. So right. So
she dances around with the clothes, then all of a sudden it flashes and she's wearing those clothes.
right, which I found very weird. I thought she looked better in the dark clothes though.
See, and she did.
Yeah.
She was at that point in time. She was becoming. It was basically. There's voiceover that happens. I don't know what happened in the version that you watched, but there's voiceover where he's talking to his father. He keeps talking to his father, and his father says, "Well, I want this girl. I haven't felt this way in millennia." And he's like, "I'm going to seduce her and make her mine." And the voice is like, "Oh, you only want her because she's innocent." And blah, blah, blah. There's this whole big thing. Did you hear any of that go on?
No, he was talking to the goblins. He was
right.
Like,
see, that's what I'm saying. So different versions, different information. And I've seen all of the versions so many times that they all run together for me.
yeah.
So basically, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to woo her to be his bride. And they do this, but at first she's like, no, 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 no. And then, oh, okay. Like, she just goes along with it.
Well, I mean, that was also to trick him into thinking that she was evil now.
Right.
So.
Right. But
And I kind of got Beauty and the Beast vibes from it.
And you know what? That's one of the things that they pulled from.
Yeah.
They completely pulled from Beauty and the Beast for this movie. So that I do see that. That's a really good point. But she does do the dance. She does take the gifts, and she does look like she's going in to be the mistress of darkness, basically.
Is the gift there's a scene where she pulls this, like, the ugliest necklace I've ever seen out of this box.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, it's a necklace. And there was nothing good about the necklace. It was ugly. I hated it. I would have thrown it on the ground. Spit on it a little bit.
Give me something else.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, Jack and Gump have managed to sneak into earshot and listen to the conversation between Darkness and Lily. And it's revealed that darkness can't be destroyed by sunlight. So now we can see why eternal darkness on Earth would be a good thing for him.
Yeah, right.
So they do return to the kitchen area where they have a battle with the ogre things. Pretty sure he kills them. And then they decide that what they're going to do is they're going to take all of the giant platters to manipulate the sunlight down into the depths of the castle to destroy darkness. And they do save Blunder from being a pie.
Right, yeah, pull him out of it.
Which was, a big thing. So, little bonus. Hey, by the way, you're not a pie.
Yeah.
So...
that scene was actually kind of weird because they pull him out and they're like, all right, now don't talk. This guy's next to us. He's asleep. And the first thing he does when they untie him is starts, like, yelling. He's like, oh, help me. What do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to pull you out of this pie. You're screaming around. Shut up. I would put him back in the pie.
Put it back in the pie. Put the big lid back on him. So setting up for the finale, the crew races against time, literally running out of sunlight, setting up all of the platters throughout the castle. So Gump and Jack, they're back watching the ritual, waiting. They're like having inner turmoil, inner demons of themselves of whether or not they should shoot Lily.
Right.
Because Gump is like, shh, darkness has her, bro. We have to get her, we have to get her out of this situation.
The unicorn's more important.
Right, absolutely. But flashback to the beginning when he was talking about trusting her.
Right.
And he says, I think he even utters the word, I trust you, Lily. So his instincts do pay off. Lily frees the mayor, but she's knocked out by darkness. Like he backhands her.
Yeah, he backhands her.
With the quickness, like psh.
Which I thought was weird because later on, like a little bit after, there's like, oh, she's under a spell of being knocked the heck out because he backhanded her.
Exactly.
But she's all sleeping and I was like, no, dumb.
So Jack and Darkness have a big grand fight, which I would have expected a little bit more out of, but I guess you're not going to get too much because that guy would absolutely wreck Jack. But
the thing with Blender, he just sent him right underneath. But Jack can have a couple of swings and you guys can have a talk about it. And I was like, come on, man, you're the Darkness dude.
Right.
Put a little bit more oomph into it.
Now, I think the only thing it says is that darkness cannot destroy. There's a line that's earlier in the movie where it says darkness cannot destroy pureness or something along those lines, to basically say that's why he can't destroy him, is because of that. So they're fighting. Jack fights darkness and finally does wound him with the alicorn. Just about that same time, all the sunlight does get redirected and blasts through the doors and basically square knocks darkness right on his ass back towards the void. And Blunder is standing in the way when the doors get blasted and gets blown up into the air just crazy. I always thought that was funny. Why would the sunlight blast him as well? Isn't he quote unquote?
I thought it was funny that when Una was going up to let him know that it was time to move the thing up, the guy was asleep.
Yeah,
he was sleeping up there.
Yeah, he had knocked out,
and she was like, "Bro, wake up."
Yeah,
how would you fall asleep during the time?
He was tired.
No excuse.
Sun's going down. It's time to go to sleep. So Darkness does give a final warning that he will truly never be gone.
Yes, because what is light without dark?
Right, and evil lurks in everyone.
Yep. So
Jack does hesitate for a moment, but then with a targeted blow, he does cut off the hand of Darkness holding the alicorn. And where does Darkness go? He goes into the void.
Right into the void, yeah.
And seemingly destroyed.
Yeah.
kind of turns into stars that fly off to the screen and whatever. So
it was weird to me that space was like that close like that when they were in the mountains or what it seemed. So it was kind of weird.
All I thought is that it's some kind of portal that he had because he's darkness.
That's fair. Yeah.
And, you know, that would be pretty cool. So, big fight over. All is one. Gump returns the stallion's horn, which does return him to life, thus ending the winter that's, you know, been eternal onto the world. At the same time that he's doing that, Jack is retrieving the ring that Lily had thrown into the lake, returns it to her, returning her to life as well. So now is when we get into, depending on the version that you're watching, depends on what ending you get to see. So what ending did you see?
I want to say that they just kissed and that was it. And
now, did they run off into the sunset together, turn around and wave to everybody goodbye?
No, I don't remember that.
Really? So, there's supposedly 4 movies. The first movie he showed to a test audience, and he was really put off by 2 guys that were getting high, and that's not a joke. If you watch a Ridley Scott interview on it, these were 2 guys that were getting high, and he was like, that's not what I want to make. I don't want to make that kind of movie that they're so bored that they're getting high. And so that had one ending in it. That's kind of unofficial what it is. So the director's cut, Jack tells Lily that it was all a dream, but she doesn't believe him.
That's what it was.
So they decide to remain friends. She returns to her human life while he returns to his wild child life in the forest.
Right.
That's the one that you saw?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I thought was stupid because he got her the ring. Get married. You made promises.
Right. And I guess what that's supposed to show is her accepting her fate as being a princess.
After everything.
And standing up and, and basically growing up. That it's not time to run around with a wild boy anymore. It's time to go and be... A
wild boy who just killed darkness. If I took that man to my father, we'd get married.
I would expect that.
I mean...
The American version, Jack and Lily choose to stay together, and they run off into the sunset together.
Acceptable.
And then they turn around and they wave to all their fairy friends and say goodbye. And then Darkness is laughing from the void at them. Oh. He comes, like an image of him shows up over them looking down at them. And he goes, ha, 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 ha. And that's how it ends. In the European version, it's the same as the American version, except no Darkness laughing. Oh. So that's the different versions of how the movie ends. And so you saw the
she
the one.
Woke up and she was all like, "Was it a dream?" And he was like, "No."
So I don't want to go too far into it just because I don't want it to be that kind of show, but a lot of people do tie a lot of religious aspects to this with the whole Adam and Eve thing.
No.
And good versus evil, darkness, light.
I could see that.
All of that. The storyline, the temptation, the woman leading and causing issues and stuff like that. But I don't need all that. He says that it was based on something else. We're going to go with something else. But I thought that I should bring it up because if people look and they're going to be like, well, you didn't bring up this point.
Yeah.
There it is, so it's there. So what are your overall thoughts on the film experience?
Well, my after movie thoughts were that it was an overall pretty weird movie. sort of boring in some parts, but other parts kind of engaging. But
now, would you recommend it to a friend?
If it was like a last resort, no. Or yes. Like if we had other options, no.
Like Rocko's Modern Life is on, or Legend. Oh my god.
Oh, was that the cartoon with the little dog?
He is a wallaby. Yes.
Well, with a big nose.
Yeah, sure.
We would watch that then.
Okay.
So I can learn more about the wallabies.
How many moos do you give it? Best of 5?
Well, so at first I gave it a 6 out of 10.
No.
That was my impression at the beginning. But now I give it a 5 out of 10 moos after watching it.
But we do 5 out of 5.
Oh shoot, that's right.
Yeah.
Well then, a 2 out of 5.
2 out of 5 moos. Yeah. So you actually like Labyrinth better than you like Legend.
Oh shoot, that's right.
Well, you can't change it now. You done said it.
Well, you made me mess up my little. My conversion chart's not the same. I don't know. I guess like a 3.5.
What's the conversion?
I'd give it
rate?
half a 5.
Does the ending have a bearing on that?
Yes.
Like if
I mean,
you
the
had
ending was kinda
seen,
garbage.
if you had seen where they ran off together, would you feel better about the movie?
I would feel better about the movie. Maybe they get
see.
the extra half point. But I didn't like that after risking his life to go get the ring twice. She's like,
See, to me, it changed
Whatever.
the character flow. It made it more about her than it made it about him.
yeah.
So who is the main character of the movie? Because people think it's Tom Cruise. But
The
is Tom
unicorns?
Cruise the unicorns?
Stops. I hear it when I go to sleep.
So, I mean, but really, the movie seems to be more about her.
Yeah, it did.
Me,
I mean, she's the first character, or not the first character introduced because the Green Goblin was introduced first, but
right.
she's the first real
Of those characters.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's about her and her life and how she's not accepting that she's a princess. So she's going and hanging out with the serfs, you know, the lower of the low. She's going and hanging with a wild child. She's not doing, and she has impulse to where even though she's being warned, hey, don't do this. It's bad. I want to do it. I'm going to do it. And then she has to see the repercussions. So her going and facing darkness like she does and overcoming that and making a choice to free the unicorn even at the sacrifice of herself, is it more about her growing up and then having to accept, you know what, I have to put away my childish things. I have to now be a princess and go back, even though they don't talk anything about her being a princess.
So I want to say, simply because they don't talk, there's no background of her being in the kingdom, her with the people.
Right.
I want to say that isn't the main focus of it all, because if it had been, we would have started in the kingdom and her running away.
Right. You would think that would be exactly.
Right.
It almost feels like it's the middle of a movie.
Yes.
Like you come in at the movie. Now, did the version that you watched have a prologue to it? Like, you know what a prologue is, where the words scroll?
No, yeah. No.
So no scrolling words. In some versions, they put that in because they felt like they needed a little bit more lead in for people, because people are kind of like, all of a sudden you're just in the middle of this movie and like, what?
Yeah, no, there was no prologue. Just
no prologue, just goes into it. All right. So we get 2.5 out of 5?
I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
3.5.
That's
so you're
halfway mark.
so you're well, no. 2.5 would be half of 5.
Is it really? Well, it was less scarring than David Bowie's package. But it wasn't as entertaining, I guess you could say.
I got you.
It was less engaging than the other one was.
So 2.5?
2.5.
2.5 out of 5?
Yeah.
I'll take that. All right. So we'll wrap that part up, and now I'm going to do a bit of trivia. Trivia, a little bit of information. It's a little bit of a segment that we're going to start seeing how it works, see how everybody feels about it. So we're going to start for all you 80s video game kids out there. I would hope that you would have heard this urban legend by now, but they say that the Legend of Zelda series is actually based on this movie. That's a deep urban legend, but that's what they say, that the creator actually based off of it. If not, well, now you have heard it.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got pretty much the exact same storyline. You've got a young hero given a quest that has magic, upgrades in armor and weaponry, dungeons,
Fairies,
mini bosses, fairies, puzzles, and a final master boss that defeating sets the world right again. Oh yeah, and don't forget saving the princess along the way.
Right.
Now think about that. Think about your Zeldas. Think about Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, no,
think
that's what I
about
was
all of
thinking
them.
about.
You've got where the princess gets in trouble because of darkness, some kind of darkness coming into the land. You have where it was light and now it's dark. You have where you have some basic nobody. I mean, Link is not in any of the story. He's just nobody. And he is built up over time. He has fairies that hang out with him. Hey, listen.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Go
Go
away.
away.
At the worst time possible, she shows up. But yeah, that's I could completely see it, and a lot of people that of course it's not confirmed, and of course it's never going to be confirmed, but a lot of people do see and say that. So I thought that was a really interesting bit of trivia. The film was actually, they did originally want to do it on like on location in a forest, and he found like the perfect spot, but they couldn't control the lighting. Even like in the brightest day, it didn't matter. They couldn't get the lighting like they needed to because the trees, it was so dense, the forest was.
Yeah.
To have the trees at the size that he wanted, they couldn't get the lighting right. So they built it on the 007, the James Bond 007 soundstage. And they call it the 007 soundstage because all the James Bonds were filmed there. But a buildup of gas near the ceiling caused it to catch on fire and it burned to the ground.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. They did rebuild it. But and in time for the A View to a Kill, which came out with Roger Moore in it. Again, don't expect you to know it. But that is the truth. They burned that thing right down.
That sucks.
So they had a whole bunch of, I think they built the trees out of fiberglass. Like these people, I saw pictures of people actually shaving down fiberglass, huge fiberglass trees and stuff like that to build the set. And they had real trees and real birds on set. So yeah, somehow I guess the greenhouse effect was going on, some kind of reverse greenhouse effect. And it tore it up pretty bad, burned it to the ground. Tim Curry had to sit in the makeup chair for 5.5 hours each time he was put into his makeup because his entire body was encased. 5.5 hours sitting in that's not even working yet. You're just sitting in the chair getting the makeup put on you.
Now, who did he play?
Darkness.
Darkness, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Tim Curry.
See, I thought Darkness kind of looked like the guy from,
what are you going to say?
White Chicks? The guy who, the one who wants to buy him and spend the night, wants to pay him money to spend time with him.
Terry, I can't think of his last name.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Crews.
Terry Crews. Yeah, Terry Crews.
Yeah, I thought he looked like Darkness in the face, and I was like,
yeah. No, you know who else Tim Curry plays?
Who?
Original It.
Oh, really?
Yes, same guy. Pretty crazy, huh? Actually, Tim Curry is probably one of the most prolific actors of history. Do you know who Home Alone 2, the main guy in the hotel? Your pizza, the guy that goes into the room and gets chased out when he's that's Tim Curry.
Oh, wow.
That's him. He's also Rocky Horror Picture Show. He's Dr. Frankenfurter. He's all the iconic characters this guy has played. And it was actually Rocky Horror Picture Show. The director saw him in that and was like, oh yeah, you're going to be my Darkness. Tim Curry didn't think he was going to do it until he saw himself in the makeup and was like, yeah.
That's really cool, yeah. No, I think it turned out really well.
I'm doing this. Yeah, he's frightening.
Yeah, he does.
I still think Meg is more frightening.
Yeah, same.
I think that Darkness is scary, and as a kid he was scary, but Meg had me, man. Yeah, no. Just the movement alone of Meg did it for me. The funny thing, the Goblin Blix's face is based on Keith Richards. And I know you don't know who he is, but other people are going to. And he's a member of Rolling Stones, the band. And yeah, he was so haggard and beat down that's who so the guy that Green Goblin, basically, that's who he looks like. And it would have made for a very different movie. Jim Carrey, Johnny Depp, and Robert Downey Jr. were all considered for the role of Jack.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp would have been interesting. I can't see Robert.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, not Jim Carrey.
Apparently, I've seen a lot of other movies where Jim Carrey, because he was putting himself out there a lot as an actor. And he was in Once Bitten at that age. And at that point in time, he went by James Carrey. But he was considered for a lot of roles. There was a lot of roles that he almost got in the 80s that he just missed out on. And it took him on being in Living Color to really get his name out there to be somebody. But yeah, he really had that. And Robert Downey Jr., and unfortunately in the 80s, was just drug addicts, just heavy into drugs. And that's probably played a part in it. They did have Jack, the character, had a lot more speaking role, but they cut a lot of that out for old Tom Cruise. He just enjoyed posing.
Yeah.
And showing his teeth and manspreading.
Yeah.
Here's me again. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. So, anything else that you'd like to speak about?
No, not really. I mean, I think that pretty much wraps it up for me.
All right. Wraps it up for me, too. So we are going to wrap up the episode for the night. Of course, we'd like to thank everybody for stopping by, listening to the second episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. We do deeply, deeply appreciate it, more than you could ever imagine that you guys come and listen. Found out today when I was looking at our stats that we have listeners in Europe.
Yeah.
So somebody in Europe has downloaded and listened to our show. That is beyond crazy to me. We have gotten some iTunes reviews, which is awesome. Anybody that can take the time and do that, you have no clue. Beyond Patreon, beyond anything else, those iTunes reviews, especially 5 stars, please, if you can. If you don't want to give 5 stars, you don't have to leave a review.
Yeah, just don't leave a review.
Yeah, you can just leave a review on Facebook and tell us, you guys could do better. Beth's, drawings are nice, but the show is not entertaining. Okay, well, thank you on Facebook, but yeah, don't.
And then we'll block you.
And then we'll block you because we're petty. So you can email us at theyesteryearpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at yesteryearpcast. You can find us on Instagram at yesteryearpodcast, as well as on Facebook at yesteryearpodcast. We do have our Facebook group, which is the Truffle Shufflers. The the secret question is the host names, and of course that's me, James, and my co-host Beth. Our website is yesteryearpodcast.buzzsprout.com, and I changed our Patreon up a bit. Did it without telling anybody, but since we only had one episode up, I figured it would be best to do it now. I had it as more focused on yesteryear, but I'm calling it the Nostalgia Group. So it's www.patreon.com/the Nostalgia Group. That is our Patreon page because it's the Nostalgia Group.
Yeah,
is what our Patreon is, and I wanted to have that saying that instead of saying yesteryear, but we're calling it nostalgia.
Right, because I guess because you pay, you can see all the other episodes as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, and eventually, we will end up getting ads, I believe, on our episodes, and on nostalgia, you'll be able to hear all the episodes ad free. Yeah. So, of course, that's future talk, but it will probably happen. We do, of course, want to give our shout out to Greg Revan, who does our intro and outro music, not only for yesteryear, but for Nostalgia Group as well. Great guy. As I said before, if you need any kind of musical work done, he's got a great mind on him. He's got a great style, and he can do what you want him to do. So other than that, I think we'll call it wraps. Thank you very much. And as always, we love you.
Yep.
So say goodnight, Beth.
Good night.